The member for Blaxland.
That was it. That was it. Well, Deputy Speaker, that was extraordinary. That was extraordinary. For those who missed it, what we just saw there is the junior minister at the table just do a backflip worthy of Nadia Comaneci. Because in case you missed it, what he just did then is gut this bill like a fish. He came into this parliament in December and tabled this bill and gave us a lecture about how important this legislation was, told us that it improved competition, that it improved efficiency, and now he's just ripped all of that out. Just ripped all of that out. This bill has 8 parts, and the government has just ripped 5 of them out.
He's holding the fish skeleton up going to
ripped 5 of them out. How humiliating. How humiliating. In case you missed it, this is the first bill that's been introduced by this government on the NBN in 2.5 years.
It's been gutted like a fish.
And it's just been gutted like a fish. But I am glad to see the government capitulate so heavily, so quickly, because this is a bad bill. As I said when I spoke in the second reading debate, what the government has tried to do here is roll back important consumer and competition benefits that we delivered when we were in government. Things like universal wholesale pricing, things that provide fairness for people who live in regional Australia. It means that people living in the bush pay the same wholesale price for equivalent services as people who live in our big cities. And the Liberal Party wants to get rid of that, and the hapless National Party stood here ready to help them. And the only reason that it's not happening is because the Labor Party has stood in their way. And let's be very clear, Mr Deputy Speaker, the only reason they are doing this is not because they've changed their mind, because the minister just told us in summing up that he still thinks this is the right thing to do. The only reason they're doing it is because they know they can't get it through the Senate. And if they win the next election and they get control of the Senate, then you bet this legislation will be back. They'll be onto this like Donkey Kong. They'll be back into this, trying to pass the same legislation again. In the meantime, we have more of this mess that they've made of the NBN. Remember, the cost of the NBN is now double what Malcolm Turnbull said it would be. He said he'd build it for $29.5 billion. That's now blown out to up to $56 billion. The NBN is now going to take twice as long as Malcolm Turnbull said it would to deliver it to everyone in Australia. He said everyone in Australia would have access to the NBN this year. That's now blown out to the end of the decade. And the cost to fix up the copper, to make this dodgy second-rate NBN work, that's blown out not by 100%, not by 200%, not by 500%, by more than 1,000%. It was originally forecast to cost about $55 million. It's now over $600 million. And a leaked document last year showed that the Optus HFC network that they want to use for the NBN is not fit for purpose and will cost more than $700 million to fix so they can use that. Malcolm Turnbull said that it would be a modest cost to fix that. Now we know it's blown out to $700 million. And the minister might have something to say about this because he used to work at Optus. So it begs the question, what did he know about this? And did he tell the now Prime Minister that it wasn't going to be a modest cost to fix the Optus HFC network? Why didn't he tell the Prime Minister that he's wrong? Or did he? I wonder whether the minister will tell us the truth. And now, on top of this, this week, 2 more damaging leaked documents. The first, this document on the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald this week, that revealed that the cost of building their dodgy second-rate NBN, the copper fibre to the node, is going up, and that the rollout of their fibre to the node is way behind their internal targets. This report, which is only just over a week old, says that they were supposed to be at 94,000 by the end of that week. It's only at 24,000. And then today, this report that reveals they've done a trial of a new type of fibre in Ballarat and Kooringal, and the cost of fibre is going down. And now, to add to this, we've got this humiliating backdown by the junior minister today, gutting this bill. Well, I can tell you, Deputy Speaker, we're very happy to assist the government in gutting their own bill. You should be embarrassed.
I thank the member for Blaxland. The minister.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. There are a number of things that the Shadow Minister has said which do require some response. I remind the House that when the previous government left office, after 6 years of government, 4.5 years after they'd first announced their NBN Plan Phase 2, Mark II, they had managed to build out the network to such a tiny extent that only just over 300,000 Australian premises were in a position to be able to connect to the network, should they choose to exercise that desire. The number now stands at around 1.775 million and is increasing at an extremely rapid rate. Not only are the total number of premises that can be connected increasing rapidly, we are also seeing the number of actual connections increasing rapidly, with the weekly rate now well above 14,000 per week, compared to Labor's frankly pathetic performance of connecting in 3 years just 51,000 premises. In other words, in less than 4 weeks, at the current run rate, under this government, NBN is connecting more people, more premises, than could be achieved in 3 years under the previous government. The reality is, Mr Deputy Speaker, that NBN is led by an experienced, competent board, chaired by Ziggy Switkowski, one of the most experienced telecommunications executives in Australia, let alone the world, a former chief executive of both Telstra and Optus. It is led by a CEO in Bill Morrow, who is deeply experienced, and across the management team there is a collection of highly qualified and experienced telecommunications executives. You may ask, surely this is a fairly obvious and basic thing to do, but bizarrely, Mr Deputy Speaker, it was not done under the previous government, and that is one clear reason why the rollout performance under the previous government was hopeless. What NBN Co is doing now, under the overall direction of the Turnbull government, and previously I might add under the very competent direction of the member for Wentworth as Minister for Communications, what NBN Co is doing now is calmly, pragmatically, systematically getting on with rolling out the network, putting in place all the fundamental and basic corporate disciplines of planning, of monitoring performance against plan, and achieving against targets. And that is why NBN Co has met its published targets now for 6 quarters in a row. Mr Deputy Speaker, it continues to be the case on the published numbers of NBN Co and on its internal reporting that fibre-to-the-node connections are materially less expensive than fibre-to-the-premises connections. At the same time, as the company has indicated in its public reporting, customer perceptions of fibre-to-the-node show no difference to customer perceptions of fibre-to-the-premises. So the ultimate test is, what do customers make of the services? And we are seeing the customer perceptions being consistent with the strategy that the Coalition took the 2013 election and the strategy that is now being implemented by NBN. Mr Deputy Speaker, the opposition spokesman continues to attempt to try and whip up some version of events which is at odds with reality. What we are seeing is a difficult and ambitious project, a project which we have consistently said is not one we would have started. We would not have chosen this as a starting point, but it fell to the Coalition, as it so often does, to clean up Labor's mess. And what we are doing is getting on with NBN as a company managing this ambitious rollout in a systematic, methodical, business-like fashion. The results are there. There's a lot more to do. It's a big and ambitious project. But under the Turnbull government, it's going very much in the right direction.